Everyone. We are Rich and Heidi Joy with Breathe Ministry. I'm Rich.
I'm Heidi.
And we are really excited to be here with Vision New England today and 4 pastors from churches around New England to have a roundtable discussion and share ideas about the positives and the challenges of this coronavirus crisis we've been going through.
We're just going to let them introduce themselves. So let's start with Pastor Mike. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what your church is about, and maybe your just life situation.
Yes, my name is Maikon Monteiro. I'm a Brazilian pastor, pastoring a church in a Greater Lowell, specific in Chelmsford. My focus is the Brazilian community, Portuguese speaking, and we're very glad to be here.
Great to have you here. Let's start. One of you go next. Go ahead.
Ashley.
I'm Ashley. You just want about me first?
Sure.
I'm Ashley. I'm at Anthem Church. We are in Bedford, Mass. We meet in a hotel there. We're a year and a half old. We launched in October of 2018. So I've been there since August of 2018. This is my second New England church to be on staff with. I was on staff at a church in the North Shore also. It's been a crazy wild ride. This is my first church plant, but it's been so fun to be a part of, and feel like God has been doing incredible things. It's great to be a part of.
Great.
Can you tell us what you do at the church?
Yes. Oh, yes. My title is Community Life Director. So things like small groups, events, thinking about outreach. On Sunday mornings, I run First Impressions, which is our team that does hospitality and welcoming and greeting. Is my responsibility on Sunday morning. But I feel like I'm sort of the catch-all role for what goes on.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Thanks. How about Matt? How about you next?
Yeah, so Matt Samuelson, pastor of Glastonbury Community Church, a small church outside of Hartford. The solo pastor, been here for 9 years, and have married, 4 kids at home, a dog, and we're trying to weather the storm, so to speak, and doing okay and making mistakes, but glad to be a part of this conversation.
Great to have you.
Yeah.
And how about you, Aaron?
God bless you guys. I'm so happy to be here with all of you, and what a crazy time we're in, right?
Yeah.
But my name's Aaron Rios. I'm a pastor in Beverly, Massachusetts, and currently live in Merrimack. We moved over here about 8 months ago, and I have 5 beautiful daughters. And my wife and I have been married for going on 15 years here. So we're really excited to be in New England. Moved up here from Florida after hearing about the lovely New England beaches and
the beautiful New England weather.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we're really glad to have all of you guys with us. And if you're joining us on Facebook, we're really happy that you're taking the time to be a part of this too. You can participate with us using the chat box in the side panel. If you have a question or comment, add it in and we'll try to build that into our conversation. So this is just an unprecedented time we find ourselves in with this COVID crisis. But we want to start by saying, where do we see the hand of God in this? So we'll just throw that out to you guys. Where do you see the hand of God at work over these last weeks?
I've been very pleased to have connections. We've been developing connections with pastors and local business and people around us for quite a while now. And I can see the hand of God blessing us with those connections. People really step up to the plate. They've been helping us. They've been reaching out and blessing us even with money or groceries that we can serve the community. Another thing that we've been seeing of hand of God is how many people has been coming to the lives and live streams that we have. I've been getting phone calls left and right from people that used to come to church, and now they scare when they want to come, they want to join the church, and they say, as soon as you guys open again, we're going to be there. Yeah. So I think is a very good time to preach the word of God.
Matt, you're nodding. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, I think people are thirsty for more. I mean, I think people are, they crave connection, like Pastor Mike was saying. I think even when you walk down the street and you see people waving like it's the Midwest or something, it's unbelievable. New England could be so friendly. And so my wife is from Wisconsin, so I joke about that. But yeah, I think there are people who are curious, people asking questions, they're wrestling, they're scared, and I think the trust connections that you built beforehand really are being tested and tried. And I think, like Mike was saying, you really find out where those connections are and how you can see those used for ministry in various ways and serve one another.
Yeah, great. Aaron, Ashley, you guys seen the hand of God at work?
I'll let Ashley go first.
Yeah, for sure. Just so many ways, and big ways and small ways. I think for us, for me personally, I feel probably the most connected to our community that I have, our church community, than I ever have. The ways that we personally called everyone in our congregation when this first happened. And so to really have, I don't know that I've ever had such an accurate or such a specific pulse on the people, which has been so great to see people to connect in new ways. Something about our church is that we're pretty geographically spread out. People drive a lot of people drive from a significant distance to come to a Sunday service, and that's no longer a barrier. It's no longer a barrier to people joining small groups and getting involved in community and connection. And so to have that barrier removed has been really interesting to see how people have engaged in new ways. It was a specific thing that I think was meaningful to me is that we had already planned on doing a Zoom small group before all of this. We had thought, because to think about how we can solve that problem of people being far away, we're like, what if we try a small group on Zoom? So the week before we went online, because of COVID, we'd already been like, this is what it looks like, get in the Zoom group online. And then all of a sudden, once we got to our first meeting, it was like, oh, good thing we have a Zoom small group, because none of our other small groups can meet in person anyway. And so just such a strange provision that we were ready for that. So that transition was so seamless because of that. It's been really neat to see the people who have connected that we've never heard of before this, and we're sometimes even like, I don't even know how you heard of Anthem, but you did, and here you are online, and watching people engage in that way. And I think the ways that somehow we've still stayed a church family, even from far apart, I've really felt that even more so than when we were meeting together in person.
Yeah, we've sensed that in our church too.
Yeah.
The Zoom groups actually had removed some barriers from some people being apart.
Yeah, and people even seem a little bit more willing to share in the chat boxes, which is interesting.
Yeah.
How about you, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, I can echo most of what everyone's saying. God's hand is always seen most clearly in struggle, and so I think that everyone is getting just a glimpse of God's hand, both personally, so not just on the grand level, on the macro scale of everything that's happening, but I think even individually on the micro level, in everyone's life, they're just experiencing God in a whole new personal, intimate way. We've just rolled out some Zoom groups. Actually, last week was our first one. It was just so exciting to see the joy in people's faces, for them to be able to make that connection with one another. And then being kind of a new pastor in this church, it's kind of a deconstructive thing as well, because you step in. So this might be where it's a little bit different for me. I've stepped into a new role with a lot of excitement and vision, and a season like this hits, and it causes you to strip away absolutely everything except the main thing and the reason why we all exist. And so right now, the heartbeat has really been, okay, the main mission we have is to preach the gospel. And so everything else has kind of been put to the side, and it's like, if we're going to thrive in this season, then we have to do exactly what the Bible's telling us. And the one thing that will never stop is preaching the gospel. And so it's really cool to see God just kind of shift everything and kind of remove all the fog and distraction and say, okay, we're going to just dive into this. Yeah. And so we're just trusting God through that. And yeah, I think we're all kind of in the same boat, paddling in the same direction.
It's interesting, Aaron, as I'm listening to you describing what could have derailed you as a new pastor with a fresh, big vision, instead really has helped to focus or refocus you. And it's really great that you can see God's hand in that.
Yeah, and our next question was about how has the pandemic affected your family life or the families in your church? And Aaron, you want to just speak into that since you have 5 girls? We talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, speaking of, Zoom calls and going live on Facebook, one of the first things that I started doing was holding prayer daily, twice a day. It was really a heavy burden on my heart because my wife was reading statistics and I started reading some statistics as well, that all of a sudden you have families that are used to being really separate. You have a mother or father that they're off at work if a household has a mother and a father. And then you have kids that are gone all day and you have all these activities and functions. You have a lot of sports happening. All of a sudden, all that stopped. Now you have families that are stuck together in houses and people aren't used to that. Yeah. We've never been used to that. We're used to losing ourselves in our distractions and in our activities. And a very sad byproduct of that, we've seen a heightened child abuse, domestic things. This is the reality of a season like this. These things come to surface. And so we've just been in such an intense season of prayer for that, for households to really work through these things and recognize that, how many times we are like, oh, if I just had vacation, if I could just get away from work. All right, well, now you have your vacation. Now you're away from work. And people are finding out that I don't even like my house, or I don't like my family, or I don't like this, or I don't like that. And so that's a reality to a season like this. It brings these things to the surface, but it allows us to be able to step in and be able to minister with what we believe is the antidote. And so that's the message of hope that we want to be able to bring. And if Christ can impact homes at that level, man, then we're going to see communities transformed and changed. And yes. So go ahead.
I was just asking, so just to clarify too, you said that you offer prayer twice a day?
Yes, we're doing prayer online twice a day, Monday through Friday, as a way to connect with the community and connect with our church, give them a chance to pray with us and let them know we're praying for them. I'll try to pray for people even by name from our church. I'll see them on there and I'll pray for them and try to encourage them. So that's just one of the ways that we've seen it affect families on a broad level. But of course, I'm in the house, like I said, with my 5 children and my wife. And for us, it's been really a cool opportunity to kind of bond even more and connect even more. And I'm just amazed how my wife does all the homeschooling. I can't take any credit. And I'm just blown away for what she's doing. So
that's great, Aaron. But let's get real for a second.
Yeah.
You're one man in a house with how many women now? 6?
6. Yeah.
So they're probably not listening. How's it going?
Yeah. I don't know. I just kind of get up and you just kind of laugh as much as possible. Yeah. It's interesting. I can do hair. I can do baby doll hair now. So I can brush Barbie doll hair pretty well.
That's great.
That's amazing.
Anybody else like to chime in on how the pandemic's affected your family life or the families in your church?
I have a daughter that's 21 years old and she is graduating this year. She's home. That's good. But as every major college or every major school now, every school, they all canceled. So it was frustrating for us to see how she worked so many years during his graduation, and right now she's uncertain. She has no idea how it's going to happen. So that's been hard for us. Our church, I'm from Brazil, and our church is a major Brazilian community, and we like to hug. We like to give hugs. We like to kiss each other. We like to be close to each other. We share food. We share everything. And it's been hard. I have people that call me, and when we do Zoom meetings, they say, Pastor, I wish I can hug you. I wish we have a family that they have 1-year-old kid. She called me yesterday and she says, Pastor, I'm going to stop by your house on Sunday. We're going to be on the lawn. Can you pray for us? My daughter's turning 1. I really need you to pray for my kid. We're going to take every precaution. And I say, no problem. So we've been doing pastors visiting online. We post something online and say, we're going to be in your house in 15 minutes. So they all got together. They sit on a couch, do whatever they want to do. And we connect. So we've been trying to reach out and compensate in there. We used to make phone calls all the time and talk to people, but now we actually have the necessity to see each other.
Yeah.
We wanna see the crazy hairs. We want to see the mess in the kitchen. We want to see everything, and that's how it is. Our family has been, the dynamic in our family has been changing a lot. I used to have a routine, and now it's hard. It's hard to keep up with the routine. Everything changed. We go to sleep very, very late, and we wake up a little later than we should. But it's what we can do.
Yeah.
And we've been eating a lot. It's amazing how much food we've been eating.
We've heard there's some great food at your house.
Yeah, a pastor friend of mine said, he put a post on it. He says he's looking for a new architect because they have to reconfigure his door, because once the pandemic is go away, the quarantine goes away, he doesn't think he's going to be allowed to get out of the house. It's kind of stuff like that, but we've been very blessed. Our family, we've been getting close to each other. Like I say, my daughter, Isabel, is 21, Isaac is 16. And we've been seeing each other more often now than we used to. And we appreciate that. That's a blessing that we didn't have it. And everybody was minding their own business every day, So it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
But
I heard the phrase ambiguous loss last week, and that the loss of those milestones for college graduation, high school graduation, or the prom, or 5th grade graduation, or not being able to play a sport, not being able to, go and participate in classes, all those things that our children from our own families and the church families are suffering.
Yes.
And
they're real losses.
Yeah.
It is.
And we were in a conversation with a man we know who's a Christian counselor, just a very wise man. And he was saying, parents have to acknowledge that in their kids, that for them it's real loss, and not make it trivial.
Yes.
Matt, your children are younger.
Yeah.
And you're working from home now too?
Yeah. I'm working from home, and
how's home life?
Yeah, it's challenging. I mean, we just had one of those things happen yesterday where one of the camps that the kids enjoy going to was canceled, and just kids just had to kind of mourn that, and it's like, that's okay. It's good to feel that, to acknowledge it's a loss, and to say, yeah, we miss that too. We miss these different things, but we'll get through it together. So you have much more of those kind of moments with your children. And then I think having I'm not sure if balance is the right word, but just between work and life, but just, if I'm not careful, I'm going to keep working and working and working. And I need to put limits, and I get all these, I'm an optimist and has all kinds of ideas, and, I want to start this other Bible study, or, this pastor's doing this stuff. We could do this, prayer twice a day. That's great for Aaron. And my family would be like, no, if you're going to do something else has to be taken away. So that's kind of where we come to an understanding pretty practically, if that's how it's going to be. And I have to, instead of doing more, I have to tell the elders on the church, hey, here's the idea, and here's how we're going to sacrifice
Yeah.
so that my family doesn't suffer. And I think that's a thing I need to always keep in mind.
Yeah. So many years ago, when we planted our church, I started working from home because the church didn't have a building or an office, and it was new for us. And I had to learn to be interruptible. My children were young and Daddy was home, and I had a little office in one of the rooms, but they would come in and say, "Hey, Dad, you want to play? Hey, Dad, you want to go outside and play catch? You want to ride bikes?" And I found myself just saying no all the time. No, no, no. And a wise man in church I was talking with, he said, "Don't say no all the time. Just say yes. Go take a 10-minute break. It's not going to hurt your work. Play with your child, and then go back to work." And it was like life-changing. It was so simple, but it was life-changing for me.
Good.
Yeah, I just think those healthy boundaries for everyone, whether you have family at home or whether you're single, that just having healthy boundaries so that you can have tight time to be. We just saw Rabbi Zacharias, and he quoted a quote that I just love. God made us human beings, not human doings. And I think in a crisis situation like this, all too often as pastors and workers in the church, we can think that we have to save everybody, but we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and we're letting God be God and we're his vessel. Ashley, do you have anything to just add to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I totally agree with that. For me, as a single person, I do live with a family with 2 little kiddos who are adorable. So I am glad to not be alone, but that has definitely been a challenge to know that I do have community, but I can't see them. And so it's not like a barricading down of some of close inner circle people, but that they're just not there. So that has definitely been a challenge and a shift. I think something that was insightful to me in thinking about my own self, my gauging as I am ministering to other people, we talk about that boundary, is that I realized that some of the things about being a minister, a pastor, that fill my tank are no longer there. And so, yeah, maybe we moved online and we found some good alternatives for our community, but I really love Sunday mornings. I love being with people and hugging people and shaking hands and seeing people and worshiping together. And I come back from Sundays like pumped because of the time that we're spent together, and to know that that hasn't been there for the last, I don't know how many, 6 weeks, something like that. And how meeting together, planning on events, doing events, is that so much of my role has changed and is different. And to realize it's not just that it's changed, really. It's a loss as everyone is grieving certain things, just like you talked about those losses. That I've realized I don't have the things filling my tank that are allowing me to minister well to other people that I used to have. And so it makes sense to me that I find myself trying to lead and to love people from a place of feeling so drained. And so I don't have good answers to that yet, but the insight that I've realized to give myself a little bit of grace, even to think about how can I do things in this time and connect to people in a way that it is filling up. The calling that God has given me, he didn't call me to pastor people over the video screen, but that's what we're doing now. And so learning to adjust that and be connected to Jesus and to minister out of his love for us. And so to recognize that for my own self, I think has been really helpful, because it's been really draining what we're doing as a pastor's life is already draining. But in this season, I've just felt that and sort of have felt, wow, why is that? And realized just what has changed. And a life that was balanced with life-giving things has been all shaken. So
yeah, this is a great time to just introduce maybe something that's coming up on the Vision New England website is John 17:23 groups. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but it's peer groups. They believe that no pastor should exist in isolation, that we need each other. And to discover how you could benefit from that, you can go to another Zoom call on April 29th or April 30th. We're going to put a link in the chat area if you want to learn more about it. But the pastors come together from all different denominations. You have like a small group online or in person eventually. They'll switch over to that. But we were at a training for those about a year and a half ago, and it's just a great opportunity to connect to other pastors and to have support and confidentiality. And pastors have a tough job. We are blessed to be in the pastorate, but it's hard leading. And just as you said, Ashley, to find those things that fill your tank or not to be in isolation is just so important. Yeah.
And we all certainly have faced challenges that maybe we never expected, or they're different now than they were before. So talk about that a little bit. What kind of a challenge did you find yourself faced with, maybe that you didn't expect, or and how did you address that? Or maybe one you're in the middle of right now that you haven't even figured out the solution to yet. Talk a little bit about a challenge you're facing. Whoever wants to.
I mean, I can start. I think of, go ahead, Matt, you start.
Okay. Oh, sorry. So one thing that was interesting is, we're doing some Holy Week things during Holy Week, and found out, some people asking questions as we're going through the Bible, and some pretty basic doctrine issues that people were wrestling with, that I think I'm glad for it. They had more freedom to share. Was Jesus fully divine and fully human? And these are people who've been in the church for decades. And now you're like, okay, how do we address these big things? And, and so you kind of find out some things and okay, let's work through this. I'm glad for that, but it was also kind of a wake up call in some ways as well.
That's awesome, Matt. Yeah.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Something I think we found challenging is when all this started to happen, there's a lot online about, now you're stuck in your homes, you're watching Netflix, what are you doing? And that was the social media face, because those are the people on social media. But to really realize that actually, at least we're feeling this tension of kind of like two groups of people. And the one group, their lives have slowed down. They've moved to working from home. Kids have moved from staying at school or from school to staying at home, and their lives have come to this halt. And there's other group of people that everything ramped up. They now are working double the number of hours. Maybe they're in healthcare now, and their hours have shifted. But this group of people they're on 8 Zoom calls a day, and they're like, the last thing I want to do is be on a small group Zoom call, because that's what I've been doing all day. And so this two groups of people that really both lives have been upended, but they've been upended in different ways. And so how are we responding to and caring for both groups of people, and knowing, the answer can't just be more stuff, because these people don't need more stuff, but they also have to have things for the people that want to be on a Zoom call every night. And so just thinking about what are the different unique needs in those two groups of people, and how we're thinking of both of them and engaging both of them. The part of people who serve and are really involved, all of a sudden it's like, where are they? Well, where are they? Is that their workload has tripled, and so that's where they not are. And some people who've been totally disengaged, now they're right there. They're on that Zoom call every day. So just the challenge of having those two, which there's, that's a broad way to say it, but really these two categories of people.
Yeah, it's so true.
So we had a question that came in. We have a couple of really great questions. One about serving the community, and we promise you we're going to get to that. That's one of our questions. So for you who asked that, hang on, we'll get there. But this one I think fits right in right now. Want to ask it?
What are ways that your church have engaged children during this time? Anyone want to go for that?
How have you engaged?
I'd love to talk about that. It's funny because when we arrived, we had a wonderful volunteer core group at the church. The church was thriving on I think almost everyone in the church was volunteering in some capacity. And so the kids ministry was doing excellent. They're still doing excellent. But I identified that, man, it would be great to have kind of that core children's pastor, I guess. And, we made it pretty clear when we arrived that it wasn't a husband and wife package deal, in the sense that I was going to preach and my wife was going to play the piano or something like that. She would just kind of navigate as the Lord led her. And So it wasn't until I think November that I approached her and I said, hey, would you consider praying about maybe stepping into the official children pastor role? Because they've been running with a wonderful volunteer base, but they've expressed that it would be great to have a children's leader. And so she spent a season in fasting and praying. And in December, she said, okay, I feel like the Lord has definitely given me the green light. And she was just really invigorated and passionate. And so the plan was March to really roll out whatever was going to happen. Well, here we are in the middle of it, but God's timing is immaculate. And so we have been putting together children's services, and just to kind of actually address this, we've tried to do, because we can't do everything, and we're trying to do only what we can and what we believe is going to create maximum impact. And for us, it's just producing a service. So. But what my wife has done is she stepped into this role. We're producing some pre-recorded services and doing all that. But and a lot of churches are doing that. But I think what is really cool that she's doing is she's making it interactive and giving the kids opportunities to earn things. She's calling them kingdom coins because the kids ministry is called Kingdom Children. And so if the kids get on and they watch it, she's stockpiling these little coin things. I don't know if they're going to have a gift box with it or something, but making the services very interactive to draw the kids in, I think has been helpful at least for us. That's what we're doing.
Can you just describe a little bit more of what that service would look like?
Yeah. And so it's her on camera, but then we edit it with videos. Some of the Bible, like she'll share a Bible verse or a Bible story, and then it'll be illustrated through maybe like an animation video that from some of the children programs that we use. A lot of them provide things like that, and so it'll complement the story. And we just now begin.
Time.
Yeah.
What children? Just because I think a lot of pastors and ministers need to know what kind of programs you're using. So you mentioned, some animation things or whatever that you've gotten. Can you just say where you've gotten them from?
I'd have to ask her, but I can tell you there's a lot of resources online. One church that we use is Life Church. They have a lot of great free resources. Some of the resources are free. A lot of times we do have to pay for the licenses. And that's another thing that I don't know if a lot of churches are aware of, depending on what your streaming package might be, whether it's a song or video. Sometimes it will require to have a license, and you gotta kind of dig that up a little bit more. But we use Life Church resources, and there's another one. Forgive me, I don't remember what it's called, but there's a lot of resources depending on what the denomination you're connected with as well. Sometimes those resources float around, but.
So Aaron, could people email you if we put that information, your email, they might be able to contact your wife?
Absolutely.
That info?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry to interrupt so much.
No problem.
Anyone else want to respond to that? What are you doing for the children?
Yeah, we do something similar. We actually moved to Zoom. We moved our kids service to Zoom on Saturdays. And so our kids director does it live, just like we're doing here. The kids get on their little Zoom videos and they interact with their buddies, which is adorable. And then they do all live interactive, just like really pretty much exactly like they would do on a Sunday with the kids director. And she also has other people teach that are normally served with the kids. And we do really 20-25 minutes for the preschoolers, and then for elementary afterwards. And then the material is also, there's some printable stuff that she puts online, and the videos that we use, what we use normally also, but which is a great curriculum, and it has some video-based animation things, video-based things, great slides and things like that. So there's really good support for that. So we'll play those videos over Zoom, and the kids can watch them. So really it's like their whole service is very similar. We just moved it to, they're all in front of their screens, but they do their worship songs, they dance their little worship songs. And yeah, it's been a really special experience, I think, to be a part of that too. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Whoever knew? Did Zoom know that they were going to be the church? Anyone else want to just contribute on that?
We are doing something a little bit different. Our church is bilingual, and we've been doing Zoom for the teenagers and for the women's ministry and everything. But we wanted the kids and as a family engage in the service. So my daughter actually did that. She created every week she sends out a homework for the kids. So like in Easter, they did a drawing. Every kid pick a part of the story of Jesus going to the cross and everything. And they did the drawing, and then they took a picture and they sent that out to us. So during service, we actually take the time to show the drawings. We take the time to put like a slide together. So the kids is actually looking forward to the Sunday morning service. And doesn't matter if they are bilingual or not. Some of those they do in English, some of those they do in Portuguese. Drawing is, anybody can do it. And some of the kids do a small drawing, some of the kids do a big drawing, but they actually they're looking forward to be part of the service. So every Sunday, we've been sending out homeworks for them, and the volunteers take over and they help the kids. But we've been very blessed to have attendance, and every Sunday we ask them to take a picture of the family watching the service. So they take a picture, they send it to us. In the end of the service, we actually show the pictures. So some of the kids actually told me, "Oh, Pastor, I love to do that. I didn't see this week. I didn't saw mine." And we say, "Your mom didn't send it." So I know that parents is gonna have to take a picture next Sunday, and that way I know they're gonna be in the service, attending the service, and interacting with the church. So that's something that we're very. I just need to acknowledge the staff. I used to rely on a lot of people, and some of the people that step up to the plate right now, the teenagers. The people that know they have the know-how to do the technology, because I can't. You know, if I was up to me, I still have the flip phone from Nextel. I love those phones. You know, I kind of get away with few things, but to be honest, I have no idea how to do stuff on computers, and I know how to get that stuff done. If you give me a hammer and I can build something for you, but computers is out of my league. And I'm very glad to see the staff, people that step up to the plate. And like I have, I was doing a live stream every Sunday, but it was nothing like it is now. You know, it's your church out there, and people wants to see the worship, they want to see everything, and there's nothing you can do. They don't have a door they can knock. They don't. It's hard. It's hard. So, but you in the other sense, you always inside their house. They, you know, every time they go on their social media, they can find a church, and it's not only you. It's thousands of churches doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So we are very glad for the staff and for the people that came up and took us to another level.
That's awesome.
So speaking of stepping up, I want to recognize people who have really been stepping up over these last weeks, and that's pastors and pastor spouses. We've talked with pastor and pastoral couples around New England, and you all are just working so hard. You've all stepped up your game. You know, I'm not just talking to, of course, I'm talking to the four of you who are in the room with us, but anybody who's checking us out, Facebook Live, Heidi and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all that you do for your church and your congregation. Thank you for the care you give and the teaching. Thank you for learning new strategies, for stepping up your game. Thank you for the big things and the little things that you do, especially the ones that go unrecognized and unacknowledged. When you do something and for your sacrifices that don't get thanked, we're thanking you. Better yet, one day Jesus himself will thank you, but for now, it's on our heart, Heidi and I at Breathe Ministry, to just come beside pastoral couples. We want to encourage and support and help you keep your marriage strong and your family healthy, and so that you can do thriving ministry. And One thing we want to offer from our ministry, from our hearts to pastoral couples around New England, is once we're through this COVID virus storm and we can travel and get out again, we'd like to invite you to come to our lake house here in Trumbull, Connecticut for a couple days. Rest, refuel, replenish, rejuvenate, free of charge. We're just offering it as some way to help for everybody, all of you guys who have just stepped up your game. We know when we get on the other side of this, you're going to be exhausted. And we want to give you a break. So take us up on it. I believe our contact info is going to be in the chat panel, breatheministry.net. You can email Heidi or Richard Joy or Heidi Joy at breatheministry.net. Let us know you're interested. We'd love to have you come here, pamper you, care for you, refuel you, and cook for you, and let you enjoy our lake and get some rest. You will deserve it, and you'll need it, and we want to offer that to you.
Yeah. Our commercial for Breathe. But there was a follow-up question to the Last Kids Ministry. Is anyone thinking about strategies for reopening? This is a great question, particularly how to handle constraints such as social distancing within kids ministries.
Wow, that's a big one. Who's got that figured out?
We actually had this conversation last night because we were recording actually part of our service, and we talked about, I think for a while, as was just mentioned, people will still probably continue in the bit of social distancing. It's going to take a long time for things to go back to, normal, whatever that is. It's going to take a while. And so we talked about how we could reposition, the kids ministry, what that could look like. And what it might look like in church during greeting times. And so I really think if we pay attention to what God is doing in this moment, rather than pining to go back to what was, I think we're being equipped for the next new thing. And as I mentioned earlier, the theme that stays the same no matter what is we preach the gospel. The methods change, but the message never does. And I believe God is really shifting up the methods and how we do this. And so on one hand, things will be familiar. I realize that, we'll get back to a familiar thing, but I think we should really pay attention to what will be the new normal, in that. And as we do that, I think that there's a divine plan unfolding for all of us of how we now approach that. I think personally, for where the Lord's really been navigating my heart is, man, there's just been such an evangelistic kind of a fire in my heart that the only thing that I want to know that's really happening is that the message is effective. And I pray that doesn't go away for us. And so how does that unfold moving forward? I think if we keep that at the forefront, it'll lead the path of how church unfolds.
I'm thinking that this topic could use its own roundtable hour. Yeah. Where we just talk about what comes next and how do we get ready for what comes next and what's our thing. It's a big topic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Aaron, for jumping in on that. That's great.
Matt,
Matt, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut.
I mean, one thing I've heard other people talking about, and I'm trying to figure out how it looks, but doing household ministry, so that you equip people in their households to do more ministry. And a bit of that's already happening. But I do wonder, when we open up, are we going to need to keep within our family units? And then, in that place, perhaps equip the family units. Or maybe we think about doing some things outdoors. If that, I'm no expert, but I wonder, if outdoors might be, especially in the summertime, maybe some things that you could be creative with social distancing, but also get the kids let their wiggles out. I think it's a creative thing to think about and how that might look. Yeah,
Ashley, it looked like you had an idea on that.
No, I have no idea. Sure, we're thinking about reentry, but really we're not. It's sort of like what's in front of us. And I think for me, at least, it's like, how can we reach people for Jesus with what's right in front of us? And the reentry question and what's going to be a new normal. I mean, things change every week. It's so hard to think about how we solve a problem that we aren't really even sure what the problem itself is going to be. So I think we're trying to, maybe dream a little bit about and reminisce on things we miss and know it's going to happen, but it feels really unknown right now to think about what reentry would
so true.
look like.
So we had one of the questions that was written in was, what programs or partnerships would you recommend for a church who wants to serve needs in our communities? A great question. Mike, I want to kick this over to you to get that started. You, your wife, your church, you've been doing so much for your community. Talk a little bit about what you've been doing, please.
I go back to the connections again. I've been very blessed to have connections in our lives in a church. And when everything started to happen, we reach out to the people that we knew. We reach out to the local food pantry and we say, you have spare food. So we became a food pantry in our church. We've been doing, we have a doctor in town that I never met, and he heard about us. And he called me and says, we want to give enough groceries for at least 10 families every week. We have a company that's a solar company that I interact with the guy outside my house one time. I was in my front yard and I saw this guy looking up my roof. And instead of yelling, like, what are you doing? I went over and he say, is there anything I can do for you? And we developed a relationship. And when everything happened, he calls us and he says, I have $1,800 donation for help with people in your community. So we've been very active in the community. We've been delivering groceries and helping families overcome this situation. It's not easy. In our community, in my church, we have Brazilians, we have people from Africa, we have people that attends the church from China, we have Colombians, we have all kind of different people. We have Portuguese, we have Americans, and they all have a different needs, and they all eat a different kind of food, and it's hard. Like I can bring chilies from my house. We're never gonna eat chilies, but if I bring to a different house, they will eat. So we actually made a little market. The first couple of weeks, I put everything inside the church van, and I go to the people's house and they say, that's the grocery, go in and take whatever you need. And they did that, but now we found it that just to be there for the community. And we've been reaching out for the food pantry. We've been reaching out for Market Basket. It's groceries. We just been looking for a ways to serve. We have elderlies in the church. We didn't allow them to go out at the pharmacy or at groceries and stuff like that. So I've been working more hours than I usually do it, but it's been very rewarding to see the people, how they react when you approach them. And we're not only doing for the people in our church, we've been reaching out for the community, different pastors. We local pastors that doesn't have knowledge. We have, like I say, I'm a Brazilian, and a lot of the Brazilians around here, they don't speak English. So when everything started happening, my phone was off the hook. Pastor, what should I do with this? Or like, how can I do this? Or even now the applications for the government loans and stuff, we've been helping families. We've been helping business and churches get it through this. So we've been our church became a very key point for the town. And this is a blessing. Mm-hmm. Funerals. I had a phone call yesterday, a pastor that never did a funeral before. And he says, I have no idea how to do it. And unfortunately, this is going to be the number 25th that I help in the last 11 years. So because everybody in the community, a lot of the pastors, they reach out to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, just on that note too, just how different funerals are. Sometimes now with COVID-19 and not being able to get out, Vision New England has a care pastor from another church in Connecticut who's just has such a heart for people. She's actually written up some ideas for how to bring the family together through Zoom and to actually have a service online. So and also for the I think, Aaron, you were going to just talk about the programs out there that Mike was talking about, how to get the loans. Some of those things are on Vision New England website, but also to contact any of these people on our roundtable panel and just asking them, how did you do it? And they'd all be willing to help.
Yeah. So, it's talking about having to get outside our walls. Always, if you're pastoring a church or you're leading in any capacity, you always talk about how do we get outside our walls? That takes on a whole new meaning now. So how are you getting outside your walls?
Everyone's speechless. Ashley, you want to go?
Go ahead.
I don't. I think Aaron wants to go. That's what.
I'm thinking and it's funny that we all take that pause right now because I think that's the challenge. It's, and I feel like I'm at a slight disadvantage because I was just moving into a new community and trying to make the connections. In fact, right before the social distancing started, I was sitting with the North Shore Gospel Coalition, and it was with a group of pastors, and we were talking about that exact thing. And I was so excited to be invited into that. And part of that was going to be connecting with the community and how the churches could collaborate. And so this was great. We were going to have our second meeting. And then, of course, that came to a stop. And so I reached out to a few of the pastors that I knew and said, hey, what are we doing? How can I help? And I think with the greatest intention, I think they're exactly where we are. And so the response was, well, I think we're good. I really don't know. And so it brought almost a sense of isolation to me personally, because I'm trying to connect and I want to know how to meet the needs of the congregation. And so we're still in this honeymoon season, if you could put it that way, where they're still getting to know us as a family, and we're still getting to know them. And so a lot of them have their own avenues for meeting needs, but I'm grateful we were able to connect with Convoy of Hope, which has gone through a couple of the areas throughout New England, and they've made drop-offs. And so we were able to gather a ton of resources that way in order to bless some of the families in our churches. And I know that there's local resources at a governmental level. And so what I've done is I've called the mayor's office, and I actually need to return their call. They've called me, but I was trying to connect with them, and I put that off, and I'm remembering that right now as I'm talking about it. But and it's just to see how we can just invest into already effective organizations. So if I'm finding that I'm not effective in this moment, then let me turn around and let me contribute to maybe an organization in the community that is being effective in doing that. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to identify, and I'm trying to invest in that. But I do feel like I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage, and that's made it a little bit more difficult, I think, for me personally.
Yeah, we've talked with a lot of pastors who feel like they just have their hands full trying to meet the needs of their congregation, and it's hard to, when you're swamped with that, it's hard to get outside your walls beyond that. Matt, you're nodding. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that is kind of the priority. I mean, Galatians 6, do good, especially to the family of believers. And so I think you need to make sure that your congregation is getting your best, but you also, you want to keep a lookout for the needs around you. But I feel like right now, trust is the premium. That's Andy Crouch says that. That's trust right now is the thing that everyone is looking for. And if you have a trusted connection, a relationship, you want to go there with that person. And so there's lots of things. Aaron, I'm with you. I haven't returned all my calls either, or emails, because it's hard to know. Okay, what do you do when you have a reputation for a certain ministry done a certain way, and now you have to translate it, and so you have to be just cognizant that God is working, but especially through trusting relationships, and and try to figure it out, because I don't think most people don't know. There's no roadmap for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're writing the map as we go.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would echo is that it's been a challenge for us also, and really a challenge as a church plant, and only being a year and a half old. In normal world, we've been trying to figure out what does that mean to have inroads in the community. We've had some negative experiences in our community just for being a church, and so really trying to figure out how can we reach our community and get deeper in that and bless people and just be blessed. We don't even have to tell them we're a church necessarily, but how can we just be a blessing and start there, and then hopefully help people take spiritual steps. And it was already a challenge, and then all of a sudden we can't be with people. And so I guess I only say that to if there are other people that are feeling that, especially other church plants that are still trying to just think about how are we going to survive and keep going and wanting to continue to be a light for Jesus years beyond. And so we're just taking the steps where we are and trying to ask, what is God asking us to do right now? What does he put in front of us? And can we be really faithful to that and trust that he's going to take us where he wants us to go if we're attuned to what he's saying.
Yeah, we only have a few minutes left, but the question just came in. As pastors of smaller churches, what are financial impacts on you and your church, and how are you dealing with that?
As Mike mentioned, and I think some of you have mentioned before, paying attention to some of the resources the government has offered has been very helpful. On one hand, we're 501c3s, most churches are. And so that's something that we've never bucked or had a problem with. And so that is a governmental, or I think as an organizational, we have to make a separation that, we are an organization in as much as we're a spiritual entity. And so if there's resources out there, certainly I felt personally no challenges in going after that. And so we moved pretty aggressively to try to obtain the payment protection plan. And then also feeling the boldness and the courage to continue to encourage our congregation to give, to honor God's word. And sometimes we feel a little shy to that because, it's tight right now. But, our ability to give and be faithful shouldn't be contingent on that. It needs to be contingent on obedience to God's word. And that's often where we see God really step in. And, we're not a word of faith in that sense, but we do believe in God's word. And God's word says to give and be faithful. And so we try to encourage the congregation. I know a lot of pastors have really had a challenge with that because we know how tight things are. But this is an opportunity to step out in faith and be an example of faith. And so taking advantage of the resources the Lord gives, and then being obedient to God's word and continue to encourage the congregation to be obedient as well.
Yeah.
Amen.
A great answer.
Just going back to the resource, I'm sorry, Salvation Army. They are supplying 3 days a week in most city with food. So even if you don't have a food pantry in your church, you can reach out to the Salvation Army and they will help you out too.
Great. Hey, it surprisingly looks like we're out of time. So I want to just thank you guys, Ashley, Matt, Aaron, Mike. Thanks so much for giving us the hour and your thoughts and for being a part of this. Thanks so much for your commitment to serving God's people and for being faithful where God has planted you. Mm-hmm. We just pray God's blessing on you and the ministry you're doing, on your church, on your family. And for those who are engaged with us on Facebook Live, we pray God's blessing for you. I'll just end with this thought. Someone said to us the other day that this isn't the time to do church, it's the time to be the church. So that's what you guys are doing. We're really proud of you and really just happy that you joined us. So God bless you. God bless the rest of your day, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.